Who was the primary author of the Declaration of Independence? Thomas Jefferson. What was the first permanent English settlement in North America? Jamestown, Virginia. Which amendment gave women the right to vote? The 19th Amendment. Who was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean? Amelia Earhart. What 1803 land deal doubled the size of the United States? The Louisiana Purchase. Who was president during World War I? Woodrow Wilson. What event on December 7, 1941, brought the U.S. into World War II? The attack on Pearl Harbor. Who is known as the father of the Constitution? James Madison. Which document begins with the words, "We the people"? The U.S. Constitution. Who was the first U.S. Secretary of the Treasury? Alexander Hamilton. What ship carried the Pilgrims to America in 1620? The Mayflower. Which state was the first to secede from the Union? South Carolina. Who was the first person to walk on the moon? Neil Armstrong. What was the main immigrant processing center on the East Coast? Ellis Island. Which president created the New Deal? Franklin D. Roosevelt. Who refused to give up her bus seat in 1955? Rosa Parks. What route did settlers use to reach the Willamette Valley? The Oregon Trail. Which war was fought between the U.S. and Britain from 1812 to 1815? The War of 1812. Who were the explorers sent west by Thomas Jefferson? Lewis and Clark. Who was the first woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court? Sandra Day O'Connor. What was the nickname of the 1920s? The Roaring Twenties. Which document signed in 1215 influenced the Bill of Rights? The Magna Carta. Why did people migrate to California in 1849? The Gold Rush. Which president faced the Cuban Missile Crisis? John F. Kennedy. What was the first state to ratify the U.S. Constitution? Delaware. Who founded the Red Cross? Clara Barton. What 1863 speech dedicated a cemetery? The Gettysburg Address. Which city served as the first U.S. capital under the Constitution? New York City. What was known as Seward's Folly? The Purchase of Alaska. Which Supreme Court case ended segregation in public schools? Brown versus Board of Education. What war began shortly after Abraham Lincoln became president? The American Civil War. What delayed the completion of the Washington Monument for over 20 years? The American Civil War. Which founding father helped write the Declaration of Independence? Thomas Jefferson. What famous bell cracked and has never been rung again? The Liberty Bell. Which future president led U.S. forces in Europe during World War II? Dwight Eisenhower. What is the oldest European-founded city in the United States? St. Augustine, Florida. Who was the first African American player in Major League Baseball? Jackie Robinson. Who was the president of the Confederacy during the Civil War? Jefferson Davis. Where was Abraham Lincoln shot? Ford's Theater. What protest involved dumping tea into Boston Harbor? The Boston Tea Party. Where was the Constitutional Convention held? Philadelphia. What secret network helped enslaved people escape to freedom? The Underground Railroad. Which 1830 law forced Native Americans off their land? The Indian Removal Act. Which president served the shortest term, just 31 days? William Henry Harrison. What was the bloodiest single-day battle in U.S. history? The Battle of Antietam. Who was former enslaved man influenced the Emancipation Proclamation? Frederick Douglass. Who gave the I Have a Dream speech? Martin Luther King Jr. What treaty officially ended the Revolutionary War? The Treaty of Paris. Whose birthday is celebrated on February 22nd? George Washington. Who was the first person shown on U.S. paper money? Salmon Chase.